A one and a two and a chick-a-boom a chick.
Here's the truth. Traffic doesn't matter if it brings in the wrong people. At Contractor Growth Network, they help remodelers attract the right leads, the kind who already understand your value, your process, and your price range. Their SEO and web strategies are built to pre-frame your business, so when clients reach out, they're already bought in. They help businesses build confidence with marketing that you'd be proud to show off. If you're wasting hours on tire kickers or price shoppers, go to contractorgrowthnetwork.com. That's contractorgrowthnetwork.com. Stop chasing, start closing. Folks, thank you for tuning in to the Remodelers on the Rise show. Maybe you just happen to come across it. This is the first time you're listening. Maybe you listen every week. It comes out, new episode every Thursday morning. A new fresh episode comes out where you can hear probably, I got like 10 good jokes. I think I kind of rotate through them every few episodes, or maybe you'll hear some new things. Who knows? Today you will hear from a new guest. I have with me Todd and Jill Johnson with Holly Home Renovations up in beautiful Minnesota. Todd and Jill, where did Holly Home come from? Where's the origin of that name?
So I was looking at naming the construction, obviously with the last name Johnson, not super uncommon. So we redid a historic house in St. Paul that dragged me back into the contracting world, personal house that we had. It was on Holly Avenue. So we knew we were going to eventually move from that house. And I was looking for something a little bit more unique in a name than Johnson Construction or something like that. So,
I'm guessing if we typed in Johnson Construction, we'd find maybe 78 of them.
Endless options. Yeah, endless options.
Good. Well, there we go. We're already learning something new. Thank you for joining today. I'd like to kind of hear, we're going to share your story of as remodelers on the rise, your story of kind of where you've been, what you've implemented to get you where you are today, and maybe also a little bit about the future. I think there's several things that people are going to pick up, a little bit of specialty-ness in the type of work that you take on, which I think is helping fuel some marketing and sales. So we'll prime the pump with that. I think obviously, Todd, bringing Jill in. So anybody listening to this, if you're if you're kind of running your business and your wife joins, all of a sudden, bam, things get into place. Some people are nodding their heads right now. Some people might also be listening going, that wasn't exactly how it worked for me. Who knows? And then also just a lot of the things that you've implemented that has made a positive impact. So maybe go back, tell us a little bit of the origin story of kind of how the business really started, what year it was, and why you started it.
So I grew up in a contractor family outside of Omaha, Nebraska. I grew up with helping parents nights, weekends, doing remodels. We renovated historic high school into 34 apartments. We ran that for 15 years, managed it, and then kind of were flipping houses before it became a TV phenomenon, kind of through college. And then Jill decided to come back to the Twin Cities for her PT school. I was kind of looking at what I was going to do next. I did not think I was going to end up in construction again. So I went into real estate up in the Twin Cities area. I found a very old, very rundown house in St. Paul as a, quote, small project while she was in PT school. That was that Holly house I kind of mentioned earlier. So I started doing that. That turned into be basically half the house was torn off the backside. We did a whole addition and top to bottom redid that house.
Nice little small project.
Small project in this on my side. So throughout that project, got back more and more managing and also on the tools on that, and just kind of found passion again. Wasn't seeing that in real estate that I was doing, which was a much better fit for me.
Why are you laughing at that, Jill?
He's a wonderful person. He's a terrible real estate agent.
Oh,
not a strong suit for me. Sitting in open houses or.
He did fine. He did it to kind of, tap into the housing market a little bit around here and learn the Twin Cities. But it was to me, it was obvious once we got back into the Holly renovation that it's like, this is your passion, this is your skill set. You're really good at this. Like, why are we not considering making this a career for you?
Interesting. So, now I do have to correct. I do have to correct you, Jill, real quick. I do this cautiously because even the tone that I'm using. But you said he's a terrible. You used the word terrible.
Oh.
Now, my wife and I were visiting the location for the Rise conference, which is next week, and I wanted to stop by there before we went to the Detroit Tigers game last night. And as we were pulling up, she hadn't even seen the place yet. She goes, "Now you just want only positive, wonderful things out of my mouth, right?" And I said, "Yes, actually, that would be what," because my wife is very honest, and she'll be like, "Well, what about this? What about that?" I said, "Yes, only wonderful things." So while he may have not been a wonderful realtor, you did emphasize the good part. You said he is gifted and talented in the other stuff.
Yes. It became very obvious, like, how much better he was at construction than open houses.
Yes.
And he was awesome for the people, for his buyers, because he was able to point out, like, oh, this foundation has a crack. This, you're going to be spending, significant amount of money within the first 5 years you buy this place. So, I mean, there's definitely value to that, but it wasn't where his passion lies.
Interesting. And Todd, you said you got your passion back. Tell me, or kind of you found that passion. Tell me a little more about that.
So I kind of take for granted how I grew up in a way. My dad basically I have an older brother. He wasn't super interested in the construction side of the business. I always enjoyed working with hands, working with tools.
Yeah.
So my dad really utilized me to help the business with kind of trim carpentry is more my background than anything. Which I always liked it and did it through the summers and even through school years, whether at new construction remodels or that over at the school building. But it's kind of one of those things that you don't really realize how much I did growing up until kind of took on that Holly project.
Interesting.
And it was trying to find, especially the historical stuff, so I knew no one up here. All of our contacts with construction was down in Nebraska, and most of them were either retired or semi-retired at this point because my parents stopped. My dad went back to commercial construction. So trying to find guys that wanted to replicate historic trim details, trying to find, specialty trim siding profiles. And it ended up kind of being mostly my dad and myself handling all those details and constructing all the siding, trim profiles, routering most of the trim upstairs on site, all that kind of stuff.
What do you love about that type of work?
I love the historical stuff and all that intricate details just because there's always challenges. It's always something new. It's not, I'm doing the same trim profile in the same house, same floor plan 10 times in the same subdivision.
Yeah.
Type of stuff. Everything is unique. Everything have to stop before you start working to figure out, okay, how am I going to go about making all this look cohesive and done well? And it kind of falls on the trim guys in those historic houses to make up for all the wonkiness and stuff that's out of square or not plumb, not level. And kind of play with all that work. So
what you're saying is you're a glutton for punishment.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I kick myself. Yeah. And that's kind of what I do in the field anymore is the unique one-off specialty stuff.
What I love about what you're sharing, a couple things. One would be just I think sometimes maybe even when you moved up, you're like, okay, I'm going to get into the real estate side. Obviously, I'm not going to do the Craftsman stuff and the carpentry stuff or something. And then, I think sometimes we have to take a step back and go, man, actually, I do love that. And maybe that would be, I've heard that story a number of times. So it's a good reminder for all of us to step back and go, obviously sometimes work is work. But if we can match up what we really enjoy doing and try to get that going in harmony with our main work, that can be a really fun, enjoyable thing. And then what year was that you guys, how long ago was that you moved up?
Boy, I moved up in
2011. No, gosh. Sorry, 2015.
Yeah, 2015.
Okay.
And then
started the business
2018.
officially LLC 2015? No.
2018.
18.
Yeah, I think that's
So we're
Right before
7 years in.
Yep. We signed the paperwork. He signed all the paperwork for the business. We decided to make the jump, and then a month later found out we were expecting our first son.
All right.
So I was like, well, guess we're doing life.
Yeah, no better time.
And then he went
I helped someone that did a lot of like rot repair for renewal by Anderson, just to kind of get so I have something have something steady that was there.
Yep.
Instead of just jumping off the cliff, especially with our first coming. So I was working for him for a little while, and then kind of had stuff lined up, ready to go, and it's kind of like, all right, well, I told you I'd kind of be here. Now I think it's time that I'm off on my own. I've got projects lined up that I kind of need to take off and start working only on Holly stuff, and then COVID hit. I had a kitchen and a bathroom. One was a doctor, and one was an airline pilot. So it was just me at that time. I was still in the field a lot, and she at that time worked at the hospital for physical therapy. So we just kind of had like a oh crap moment. What? All my stuff's gone that was planned. What am I going to do? Plus, she's working in the hospital around COVID. Like, do we feel comfortable having me like walking into people's homes? How do I present that as like, well, I'm seeing Jill every night after she comes home from the hospital.
it was at the time when we were still, coming home and your scrubs were going in a laundry basket in the garage, and you weren't even, seeing your kids until
I remember the stage where we kind of wiped down our groceries and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things we did that's very fuzzy now that we're like, oh yeah, we did have that phase.
Yeah, it was, and to finally made the jump to have Todd go full time, and then all of a sudden, like, poof, you lost any projects that you had. So then so that was 2020. About a year and a half after 2020, then all of a sudden, the demand flies in, and he had no type of processes in place. He was still the one working in the field, aside from our mechanical trade partners. And so we were making do, but then all of a sudden we have all this demand. He has no process in place for, how do we do any type of development of projects? How do we get projects ready for construction? The work that we were doing was more pretty straightforward. He would send people off. This is what you need to select, like, come back when you're ready. And it was enough.
Taking anything you can get.
It was enough to keep going, but it was clear that, I was working at the hospital. He was working, doing as much as he could. And it felt like, we're both working so hard to just feel like we're just getting by. And like, we know the business isn't operating the way that we want it to. And so we started looking at, do we hire someone? Do we hire another field person? Do we hire an office admin? And then it was like, well, what if virtual assistants we looked into? And then it was like, what if I drop down? So then at that point, and I had been kind of just helping on the side with what I could, mostly just like the website management and then social media, what little we did then. So then I made the jump. I went 0.5 at the hospital, so 5 days of pay period a week at the hospital, and then 2 to 6 days with Holly home.
Got it. So when you think about where you were of going, okay, we're starting to get more workload coming in, where our systems are kind of, when you look at the kind of maybe 3 or 4 or 5 big things that went from, all right, this business is not running the way we want it to, all right, we have this in place and we got this going and we have this improved. What do you point to as far as some of those key pillars of things that happened?
Number one would definitely be finances.
Oh, I love talking about financials.
That's definitely not the first thing that we got into place. Number two, the pre-construction process. I think, construction is either going to go well or not well, depending on how good your pre-construction process is, whatever you call it. We had nothing in place. So we just started pretty simply of like, okay, first we're scheduling a phone call, then we're scheduling a site visit. And we just slowly started processing that out and then using each project as we were going through it to be like, how do we develop this even more so that we have a streamlined system that fits for any project?
What didn't work? What did we miss?
And at the time we were still doing, small projects, large projects, decks, interior. So what's the best, net that we can cast that helps us for everything. So he knows what's happening next. I know what's happening next.
So pause there. A couple things so far. One is we created the systems just as we went. I think sometimes we overthink it. If you want to improve your systems, if you're listening to this, you like the next phone call, you have a new prospect. Am I pulling out a blank sheet of paper? Do I have a process? What can I put in place so that it's better the next time? And just going piece by piece through. You weren't like doing rocket science.
No.
You weren't going crazy, just piece by piece. And then Todd, you also just mentioned something that's really important that a lot of remodelers just pass through is we looked at what worked and what didn't work in each part. And if you slow down enough in the busyness of running a remodeling business and you identify after each little phase, after each little process, hey, what worked about that? What didn't work? You can't help but get better. It's just that we are moving too fast and we're not slowing down enough to tweak that checklist, to tweak that process. This is not earth-shattering stuff. It's very practical stuff. So I want to just emphasize on that. So you did that on the design and project development, but if I go back to your first one, so first one, you didn't say necessarily it came in this order, but financials, design development, I'm going to have you share a few more. But back to the financial part, if we could unpack that, what kind of came into clarity and what systems and what approach helped you on that front?
We talk a lot about finances. When I joined, I took more of like an office admin role, and Todd still managed the finances. So I would pay bills, but I had no idea, where that landed with the estimates, where that landed with how much we were invoicing. The number one thing was getting a cash flow in place. Knowing what was coming in, what was expected to go out, and how we were looking forecast, and including your overhead, knowing what our overhead even was.
Yeah.
And I will say this is probably like the third point of things that we did, but it kind of overarches all the financials, is we actually asked my dad to help us. So my dad has worked as a CPA. He's worked consulting financially for companies for his whole career. And he had offered his help to us with starting the business. And when Todd first started, it felt very, no, we want to keep business and family separate, which I still very much support. But we definitely reached a point where both of us realized, we're failing. We can't keep going the way that we are. We don't have the right things in place. We don't have the right people doing the right things. And so how do we even start to get out of this? And so we asked my dad, and we were very vulnerable. We had to be very humble about where we actually were. And he was, I think he was what saved us financially, just taking the time to sit down with me. He taught me, what's a balance sheet? What is a cash flow? I had no idea what that was. He sent me a template and he sat down with me and showed me how to use it. And slowly but surely, the financials that I run now, I didn't start with that. I ran very, very simple to begin with. And over time, I've added a little piece. Okay, I've got this figured out. Now, how do I incorporate, like my WIP? How do I incorporate my WIP into our QuickBooks?
Good. So I think on the cash flow, if I could just expand on that a little bit, the idea of, it sounds like where you were was like, there's just money coming in. There's money going out. Like, how do we keep track of this? So that idea of having, I think I went back to an email that you sent. This was back in February 6th, 2025, so months ago, where you kind of summarized it. And you mentioned, that cash flow thing. I run a 13-week forecast of sold, underwrite sold construction projects. So I assume that in that you can kind of start to forecast, okay, here's how, we're going to take another progress payment, 3 weeks from now. Okay, put that in there. And then you take the time to start to forecast cost of goods sold that's going to be going out the door. And also your overhead expenses are going to go out the door. So if I'm starting with a balance in my bank account of $30,000, I have X amount coming in and I have X amount going out, it's showing me that I'm at a positive $22,000, this week, and a positive 30,000, a positive 27. If you are not in control of your financials, going and doing that type of exercise will start the process of, okay, I can see this more clearly. I can see that this project taking an extra, instead of taking 4 weeks, taking 8 weeks has not allowed me to cover as much of my overhead and create the profit. So that cash flow spreadsheet is very key. You mentioned kind of some of the more advanced, the WIP. What were a couple of the other things? Just really understanding your P&L, understanding job costing, understanding that side of things too.
Yeah. I think within the construction industry, the big thing, and you probably see this a lot, is that there's big chunks of money coming in before the chunks of money go out. So understanding that, that money that comes in isn't ours. Mm-hmm. And we owe these people, and figuring out how to manage that within all of our different accounts. Like what of this invoice that came in is going to be going to overhead? What of it is going to be an owner's draw, a salary, a cost of goods sold, and figuring out how to make that manageable and easy to do week to week.
And then we should put as a title of this episode a historic use his hands craftsman and a physical therapist start a remodeling business. Right, because even the way you're talking, like this. Go ahead, Todd.
The only other thing I was going to say is everything that Jill and her dad got in place, that was all my natural weakness. Mm-hmm. It's easier for me to jump into the field to put out fires, jump in and, I still jump in between trades or something. But if I couldn't handle that by myself. That bringing Jill on, she can sit at the desk, get all those reports run. That to me would not be my forte. That's not where I enjoy. Or
yet you've learned a lot about it as well. So
yes. Now she holds me accountable to sit down and go through it on our meetings, and we review things together. And I had no idea. Now our trim is 3 times as much as what I estimated. How did that happen?
Yep. Looking at the job costing, looking at our overhead expenses, figuring out, okay, if we're going to bring in X amount of revenue at this amount of margin, how does that look overall for our financials? So I think it's getting outside counsel and getting outside help is part of the story there. And also just this emphasis on if the money side and the financial side is murky, is fuzzy, is overwhelming, remodelers listening to this, you have to get that part wrangled. So either call Todd's dad or call Kyle with Remodelers on the Rise. Either one will work. Good. So you got
Jill's dad.
Jill's dad. Okay, that's what I meant. Yeah. Your dad.
My dad is very much like me.
Okay. You could call Todd's dad and he'd go, yeah, that financial stuff is difficult. Yeah. Call Jill's dad at 45742. Yeah, look it up.
He loves numbers.
All right. So what were you saying the third thing? So when you look at these different pillars that you're getting in place to start to move the business forward, what was the third one you mentioned?
Another one I would say is job tread. And that ties into the financials, and that ties into processes. But I remember we had our second in July of 22. So it was right around the time that I had transitioned over to 0.5. And I remember Todd came up to me and he said, hey, we were at a different company at the time. And he said, we've got a big hike coming up in costs. And I just don't think we're utilizing it.
We won't name names, but it starts.
But we just weren't using it to the extent that we should have, because every time we tried to do something, I had to learn something new. And it was difficult. So he said, he actually showed me a post in the remodelers community. He said, someone had asked, here's everybody's comments, and here are the ones that people are recommending. Since you're going to take this over, why don't you look at which system's going to fit us better? So checked out job tread. And at the time we were starting to dig into the financials. So it was like, well, here's a system that does financials really, really well. Like
that was all
at the time they didn't really have scheduling. They didn't have messaging. There was a lot that they didn't have. And I said, I don't care. This is what we're not doing well. And if we don't do this well, we won't be in business. So we jumped onto job tread. I think we were early on there.
Yeah.
Within their first year and a half.
Yeah.
I think they said 2021. And then I mean, that changed our business. All of a sudden now I could see everything of the finances. Todd could see everything of the finances. It allowed us both to be on the same page. It was some brutal truths when we first started of, gosh, we thought we were doing a little bit better than we actually are.
Meaning what? We actually could see clearly this is what we estimated
how
our
much
costs for
slippage you
this to
had.
be.
Yep. So
that was always the stuff that with me alone, it's in the back of your mind. It's like, this is not going as well as I thought it was, but I have no idea how it compares. I got to get on the next project.
Yep.
And, just kind of pushing your head down and keep going. There's not time by yourself to just do that. And Job Tread and Jill allowed us to slow down and dive into those. And by no means are we completely figured out. We're still, we'll have misses, we'll have mistakes, but we at least know when and where that happened.
Good. This might be a good time to interject this. Now, sometimes there is a Job Tread commercial that sometimes shows up during episodes. We'll see what lovely sponsor is going to be located right here. We're a boutique. We're high end. We care about the process. Cool. But does your website say that, or just say you do kitchens and baths? At CGN, they help you show it, not just say it. Because here's the thing, if your website doesn't clearly explain how you work and why that matters, you're just another remodeler with a pretty photo gallery. And that's not how premium clients make decisions. CGN helps remodelers build trust before the first call by guiding potential clients through your unique approach, your values, and what they can expect. They specialize in generating online referral quality leads with marketing that you'll be proud to show off. If you're tired of hearing, we went with someone cheaper, go to contractorgrowthnetwork.com, where your process becomes your competitive edge. All right, folks, we're back. It turns out that wasn't Job Tread, that was CGN. Go check out Contractor Growth Network, and we're back at it. So Jill and Todd, this is going lovely so far. We've talked about kind of the story. We've talked about some of the kind of the main things that you've worked on in order to get the business really functioning in a better way, the financials, the sales process, Job Tread. What were a couple others that have, as you reflect on it, because I think that's valuable, even for people listening to this, to slow down and say, all right, what have we made progress on over the last year or two? How has that impacted things? How can we continue to adjust those dials and improve it even further? But also, what are some other areas that we need to work on? Because running a remodeling business is not about some magic bullet that we find and poof, everything's fixed. It's a combination of a lot of little things, which is what you've been going through, which is powerful. What's another one that you would say?
Yeah, something else that we started pretty early-ish on was figuring out who owns what within the business. So making sure it was really clear who was in charge of what part of estimates, who's in charge of what part of creating the proposals, who's in charge of taking the initial phone call, who's setting up the site visit, just making sure that tasks had ownership and that the two of us were clear with each other who owned what, because it can get murky, especially when you add in that, not only are we dividing tasks within our business, but we're also dividing the household tasks, the daycare pickups, the parenting part of it too. So it can all, if it's not known between us who's doing what, it can feel really overwhelming for both of us.
So what's an example of that's been impactful for each of you, as far as like, okay, Todd, you kind of own this area, Jill, you own this area. What would you say?
The way we kind of describe it and the way that we've set it up is that, we have a business, our umbrella, and our business is construction.
For those of you not watching the video part, she is making the shape of an umbrella with her hands right now. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so Todd owns the construction umbrella and what falls under that. So Todd owns the communication with our trade partners, working to make those trade partner connections, meeting with them on the trade days, communicating with them via any change orders, anything like that, and then also communicating anything construction related to the clients. I own the larger umbrella of the business, and there's some flex within it. But I own, making sure that the project developments are all moving along. And then Todd knows what assigned tasks within the project development he needs to be responsible for. Marketing, social media, finances, kind of those that fall under the bigger umbrella. But then it's still all shared and known together. So the information is still decided on together. It's just who's actually executing the task.
It's good.
Yeah.
I think that's what you just described there. Especially, I think some people are like, we're a small business. It's just me and somebody else. There's just one guy in the field plus, two of us here. It is just as important, maybe even more important, to get really clearly defined roles of if two people are in charge of it, nobody's in charge of it. One person, if this didn't happen, I should be able to go, Jill and Todd, why didn't this happen? And Jill, you raise your hand and go, well, I didn't do that. Or Todd, you say, you know what, that's on me. I'm the one that should be communicating with the trade partner related to that schedule change.
Yep. And just things slip through the cracks, right? I mean, it's just, there's so many different aspects of the business, whether it's, following up with leads or, and that was always the stuff that when I was by myself, I never even got back to that lead that contacted me for that project, 2 weeks ago type of thing. And now if we don't follow up with a lead within a day or two, it's anomaly. Yeah.
And that's also translated more into us having very clearly defined expectations for our clients too. So we transitioned from, we'll get this estimate done to, hey, our next step is we have a follow-up phone call to talk about this with Todd on this date at this time. And we just set really clear next steps for each of our clients that are going through the process so that they know when to expect to hear from us next. They know who they're going to hear from, and they know what the content of that next touching point is going to be. And that got us really far away from, the emails. Hey, just checking in, want to see where we're at with this estimate, or hey, when are we going to get this back, type of thing. And you feel like you're at the mercy of your client's expectations on you versus kind of the other way around that you're setting it.
One of the ways I like to describe it would be if I log into, let's say, your job shred, maybe you got that little Kanban view where, X number are we're doing initial conversation with, these are the people in design development, these are the people in waiting on, approval. I should be able to, even without even asking you, I should be able to see what the clear next step and deadline is and who's responsible for it. Whether that be through tasks, whether that be through job shred, whether that be through whatever follow-up system you have, if you have a really clear next step that the client knows is the next step and that you already have set, that reduces cycle time. That reduces time kills deals. And if we don't do that, all of a sudden the well-intentioned, I'm going to get back to them early next week, turns into the following week, because remodeling is hard. Y'all listening to this, and for you guys, you didn't choose an easy, simple business. Remodeling has a lot of moving parts to it.
Both a lot of fires.
You think that? Oh, there is a lot of fires. I did get distracted by the umbrella thing. I'd say there's a couple of times that my wife and I have gotten close to divorce in our 20 years of wedded bliss. One of them is when we were on Mackinac Island and we rode a tandem bike, and she's left-handed and I'm right-handed. It was not good. It was not good. And then the other time that I do is she has the umbrella, and she's 5'1" and I'm 6 foot, and I'm like trying to get under the umbrella, and she's holding it tight, and she's holding it like square underneath her. And so like this, she is. Should I just not care about that umbrella? When you were showing that umbrella, I was like, why wouldn't she hold it higher for me and at least get part of my body covered?
Priorities.
Grounds for divorce. No, it's not even close. But the tandem bike thing we had a good argument for that one. That was brutal.
I don't think we need to try.
No.
I'd be like, I'll have my bike, you can have your bike.
There you go. That's the But you should go to for Minnesota. You should go. You go up through the upper peninsula, check out the sites, check out Pictured Rocks, and whatnot. And if you come down, you should go to Mackinac Island. That's all.
Lived in the UP for a couple months.
Ah, do you love it?
It was an interesting place.
What city were you in?
Ironwood.
Oh yeah, you were.
I did one of my PT clinicals up there. Yep.
Yeah, were you there in the winter?
Supposed to be, and then it was a late winter.
Okay.
So I Yeah.
One ski hill opened up.
Yeah, Todd came up to ski one weekend and there was one run open. So we did that run the whole day.
There you go. Hey, one's better than none. The other thing I heard you say was that you guys are having some regular meetings. How's that working, and how's that going, and what's the impact of that?
Yeah, we, again, when we started, we felt like we were in constant communication with each other. So why do we have to meet? You know, we live with each other. We're chatting all the time about work.
We office out of the house.
Yep.
And it became clear pretty quickly that, you know, there has to be a designated time that we talk about work stuff, because otherwise,
it's going to bleed into
it's going to bleed into our whole life. And
family dinner.
Kind of a back step to
Mm-hmm.
one of Todd's hesitations of getting into the remodeling world was, you know, he helps to work nights, weekends, and we both knew that we wanted to maybe have a little bit more clear boundaries between work and life. And we weren't quite sure if we could do that with the remodeling business. Are you always on call? Are you always at the beck of, you know, what someone needs? So from the start of our business, we've always been very clear that, you know, we knew we wanted to have kids, and we knew that we wanted our time and our attention to be on them and without work.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden we found that a lot of our conversations were happening over the dinner table, and it was like, well, we need to start having meetings.
Cooking dinner,
we'd talk.
Watch the boys, especially as the boys got older.
Yeah. And so we we now do, we do monthly meetings that go over
more in depth
everything of the business. And then we do, we're not always as consistent as it usually. We hit it every other week at least, but we try to do weekly scheduling meetings.
Good.
So that we're updating
stuff in the pipeline from a development stuff, job sites working.
And then,
next steps on everything.
At the monthly meetings, if there's something that we need to meet on further to discuss more than what that time allows, then like, okay, when next month are we going to meet to talk about
whatever the issue
overhead
is,
budgeting or
Good.
Yep. So
marketing.
So you'd say since the start, the monthly meetings, they happen every month. Been consistent.
Yeah, except for this month.
But you're 6 for 6 this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. During the commercial break, she said, "Don't tell them about this." And I said, "What? Don't tell them about what?" It's July 29th, folks. 12:39 p.m. Eastern. They haven't got their July meeting done yet.
No.
July's a tough month.
T minus 48 or so hours, folks.
We'll do it.
Okay. July's been a long month. You got time. You got like 56 hours or so. But what good wisdom and good reminders for people listening, whether you work with your spouse, whether, you just seem to kind of work kind of blends together with family time. What I heard there was a great reminder for me as well of, set boundaries. If you don't set boundaries of when your work time is and when your work time isn't, I can guarantee it will filter right into and they will blend together. And to have that conviction of going, I lived that growing up. That was an example that I had, and it had pros and cons. Okay, fair enough. And it was reality. And I'm not going to sit here and Monday morning quarterback how mom and dad did this or whatnot. But I also might learn from it. And for you to say, we want to have kids and we do not want our business to just, overtake our family time. So the fact that you guys are so clear with that, and I've heard you talk about it a few times on VIP club calls and whatnot. Kudos, keep that up. We're not always going to bat 100% with it, but it's another good takeaway for people listening today. Interesting. I think we've got a lot of good takeaways so far. If I were to say, what, Jill, were you like, wait, are we sure we got takeaways? Is that what that was? Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, there's plenty of things. What else is kind of on your guys' noggin as we kind of round third, head for home, if we could use a baseball analogy here, related to, here's some other things, actually 2 things. I'm going to give you one more shot at adding to anything that you've already talked about of impactful things that have helped your business. I mean, I think we covered some good ones there. So you do that, or you can say, you know what? I'll answer that second question, Kyle, which is, where's this business going in the future? Tell us a little bit of your vision and why.
I have one other thing to add. I think one of the things that has made the biggest difference in one, our confidence in running the business, and 2, our ability to run the business is creating a community within the remodeling world here in the Twin Cities. That was one of our big intentions the past couple of years, was getting connected with other remodelers. and not seeing it as competition. There's room for everybody at the table. There's a lot of remodeling demands right now. And these are all people that have lived what we are living right now. And I can't say enough about the connections that we've been able to make through different opportunities, and then what each of those individuals have helped to provide to us, and their willingness to give us advice, their willingness to share contacts. It's made all the difference in really feeling like, we can do this because we have a community with us here.
It's good. It's very good.
Yeah, very good.
So,
Todd, where's this business going in the future, sir?
So I was in high school in 08 when the crash happened. We were still in the construction world. I saw kind of the after effects of that. So we're pretty content on running a very lean, very minimal overhead. I don't think we'll ever look to add a lot of employees. I think we're very content. We put a lot of effort into networking and trying to find the right trade partners that can allow us to kind of scale up, scale down as we need, depending on the project. Because we're really big on it. We, even if they're great work, but their attitude, mentality, appearance, and things on the job site's not up to what we want, we're not going to be using them. So I think we're content on us two continuing to move forward. I don't think we have a lot of ambition to add a showroom.
I thought you were going to add ambition. We don't have a lot of ambition.
Showroom,
he had
multiple
to add a showroom
employees.
at the end of that.
Yeah, anything like that. And I think we're both we don't want to try to grow something that it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where we're working 80 hours a week, even if that means more revenue, more
profit,
bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. We've done a lot of work the past couple of years, kind of identifying where we're at, where do we want to go, and what do we have to do to make that difference. And I think a lot of times it can be really tempting to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I want to be the absolute best. We want to do our best work. We think that our work stands up within the remodeling world, but we admitted, and I think it's okay to admit that, we're not looking to be the 30-person company that operates everything in-house and does, tens of millions of revenue a year. We want to be able to provide a comfortable life for our family, but we see a way that we can do that, the two of us. We want to be able to be particular about the clients that we work with and make sure that we're matching with the projects that make sense to match with. And we want to make sure that we stay at a point that we stay connected to our clients. It's the two of us from the start to the end. And that doesn't mean that we don't have room for growth. It's just, how can we get better at what we're doing right now? And how can we bring that to the next level?
Now, you might sit there and go, well, I don't even know if those were takeaways, but there's people listening to this, if they actually engage in that question of where's the vision, and you just laid that, both of you laid that out very, very clearly. I heard the word content and contentment a couple times. Folks, we should be chasing contentment. That might be growing a business like crazy. That might be growing a business that supports. I'm hearing a lot of, we want this business and we're being thoughtful in a way. We want this business to support our life and our family. And that doesn't happen by accident. And too many of us, I've even been percolating on it in my own head of going, Kyle, you're a little busy. Maybe you're a little too busy. Where's enough, and how do you, and the other thing I heard you emphasize, which also resonates, is we want to make sure the experience we're giving our clients, that the types of clients we're working with, and frankly, the types of projects we're working on is fulfilling and is a good fit. And we're not going to just chase revenue for revenue's sake. There's a lot of wisdom in that. And that's one of the beautiful things, frankly, about business, but in particular, the remodeling business. There are a lot of different ways to do this successfully. So if you ponder nothing else from this interview and you're still listening to this, ponder that, what am I building here and why am I building it? You just heard somebody very clearly articulate what they're trying to build and why. And also what's kind of cool, Jill and Todd, is that 2 years from now, your vision might be different. 5 years from now, your vision might be different.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. But I just heard a very clear, here's what I know what this is going to look like in the next 2 or 3 years. And you continue to refine that. You continue, like Todd, you're mentioning, of getting other trade partners and people that can really deliver to the level of workmanship and craftsmanship that you want. You might say, okay, now we can grow to that next level. I hinted at the start, I said, there's specific projects that they take on. If you simply go to hollyhomerenovations.com, the headline says it all. Historical remodeling with a modern flair. Twin Cities Metro Home Renovations. Historical remodeling with a modern flair. We're not casting our net to take on anybody and everybody. And it's been interesting as you've been part of the VIP club and we talk about where your leads are coming from and sales and whatnot. People are reaching out to you, and because you're emphasizing this is our ideal project, that's attracting people. It's getting you ranked on certain historic keywords as well. So there's some really good strategy in making sure we're not being all things to all people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think everyone goes through that process when they start, because you're taking whatever you can.
Sure.
And it feels really scary to try to kind of put your foot down and say, I have to narrow it. And that's the only way I'm going to get out of this kind of continuous cycle of taking whatever it comes.
Yep.
Which just kind of keeps you down.
Yes. And when we're starting, yes, we have to do that. Yeah. But as we get things going, and especially if we have a Jill that joins our business and whips it into shape, then we've got opportunities to really take off. So you guys did a fantastic job. Was this your first ever podcast?
No, we were on Spencer's.
Let me rephrase that question. Since Spencer's a friend of mine, was this your favorite podcast you've ever been on? No, don't answer that.
I remember when we were on his, I had just joined, and there were so many questions, and you were like, some of whatever your biggest lessons learned or biggest mistakes, and you kind of sat there and you answered them, because it's like, well, I know we've made mistakes, but I also know the bigger mistakes are yet to come. Like, just as a part of business owning. Yeah. So, and they did.
And here they come. Cool. And Bailey also sent me a note that she goes, hey, since you're talking to a husband-wife remodeling team, Kyle, make sure you plug Remodel Your Marriage 2.0. Number 2 is on February 10th through 12th, 2026. February 10th through 12th, 2026, down in my wife's favorite non-Michigan town, Franklin, Tennessee. So maybe you guys will make it down there, but anybody else that are kind of husband-wife teams, whether you both work in the business or whether you're running a remodeling business, put that on the old save the date. Thank you so much, Jill and Todd.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Bye.